flip that over, I'll start your 20 seconds and I'll let you know when that's elapsed. Time begins.
The only time I have ever in my life seen anyone get any use out of a newspaper is when I see my grandma roll it up and hit my dog hard as hell with it. And like, you know, you better not poop in the corner of the room. Take your shit outside. Like, that's the only time I've ever seen newspaper be used effectively. That's why when it comes to today's editorial published by in the Newman Foundation at Harvard in 2024 by Paul Hethel titled "The Long, Slow Death of the Newspaper Editorial," it seems obvious that today the newspaper editorial and newspapers in general has completely died off. No one picks up their newspapers anymore. It simply stacks up on top of their house. So today I want to kind of analyze this editorial article, see what the argument is provide a challenge as to perhaps why exactly newspaper has died, and not because the reasons we think. But then second, look at the reason why newspapers have actually died. And then third, perhaps provide a bit of an alternative and perhaps how we could bring back newspapers. So first, it's not necessarily as the article, as the editorial points out, that the article editorial points out that the reason why newspapers have died is because readers don't want to be told what to do or what to believe. The editorial says that newspapers did this and people rejected this idea, but that is completely false. We look at today's news media and we see all people want to be told is what to do and what to believe. And there's a few examples for this. First, the extreme popularity of channels like Fox News and channels like Fox News that promote pretty much entertainment as a result in exchange, per se, of news information. All people do is consume news sources that tell them what to believe, whether it's shows on MSNBC that take news and turn it into entertainment. It's not necessarily that people don't want to be told what to do. There's other areas of this as well. The newspaper didn't die because people are no longer engaged in politics. They're just engaged in politics through different means, whether it's cable news, social media, and false information that spreads through social media. So why exactly did editorial newspapers die and newspapers dying overall? That's because technology has replaced the need to pick up the newspaper. We see things that I talked about, how social media and other forms have done so. I mean, it's the reason why we drive cars instead of horses. It's the reason why we do things like use AI to turn in our assignments instead of actually doing them. Because technology makes it easier to do things. Technology makes news way easier to be able to be read and distributed. It is why today, if you pull up the news app on your phone, you have consistent access to information all across the globe, whether to niche news stories happening halfway across the world in Rwanda, or extreme news stories that are extremely local to rural areas. And this is a good thing. The fact that information and news is at our fingerprint allows us to see the impacts that we otherwise would not see. Like, for example, things like climate change. If it was not for the extreme access to the news and editorials that we have now through our smartphones, we wouldn't know about the devastating impact climate change has on rural communities. But because the news media and cable news and editorials being extremely prominent on things like the New York Times app on your phone, and extremely prominent in things like social media, it is extremely easy now to see how devastating climate change is in the middle of nowhere, Missouri. It's extremely easy to see, and that's extremely good for us, not only as citizens, but as participants in democracy. We're more informed as a result of having now this new technology and not newspaper. But this isn't to say, because we all have old people in our lives. Like my debate coach kind of prefers and rejects technology a lot. So why should the newspaper come back? Like, I'm gonna argue that the newspaper should come back in a sense. Why? Because there's extreme benefits to having just a physical book and a physical access. Like the fact that I physically have this allows me to read and gain details that I would otherwise be too distracted, like looking at my phone and notifications and TikTok. The fact that my whole 4 minutes of attention were spent just on reading this editorial instead of like looking through CNN on my phone and reading some editorial and then a notification popping up on TikTok about the newest like trend in like beefsteaks and other things like that. Like I would then know that my attention is completely focused on newspaper. So how exactly do we bring newspapers back? I told you they should, but how are we gonna do it? People reject old stuff. We don't like to use flip phones anymore. But it's to look at newspaper editorials as something different and through a new lens. That being that technology can be used to bring newspapers back, whether it's the digital newspapers that are delivered at your home through access codes, or newspaper stories that are delivered in the form of reading material. People desire and want things back the way that they were. That's what we see a trend going towards the retro. So today we discussed editorial, the long, slow death of the newspaper editorial. Of course it has died. All of us in our generation have seen that newspapers just get left outside. That's bad, and we should try to bring it back.